Hi, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and today I've got a preview card, and it's fucking good. Hashtag free preview. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast. For the longest time, Death and Taxes has been pretty soft to Torpor Orb and its similar effects, whether it be the infamous orb itself or a creature with the effect stapled onto it like Hushwing Griff, or that recent thing that gives me nightmares, making your Wisps and Restoration Angels do shit all, and making your Stoneforge Mystics into a glorified Squire has been really, really bad. Like, super bad. I have lost games of Modern and Legacy where someone has randomly played a Torpor Orb out of their sideboard, and I've been left hobbling along with half my deck, only doing a third of what it's supposed to, really taking me off kilter, and just fucking my plans up. And people often ask me why don't I play Hushbringer or similar in Death and Taxes, but the effect being symmetrical and some of our best cards being hurt by it has always made it historically not really a thing. But now let me introduce you to Strict Proctor. Now Saffron Olive's going to be upset because when Marrow said we had whenever a permanent enters a battlefield effect, he was hoping for another Panharmonicon, but this is like the anti-Panharmonicon. It's a 2-mana 1/3 Spirit Cleric with flying, although as is tradition with the art of white creatures that are not birds, you would have thought it didn't have the ability to fly going by the art. This flyer has the ability, whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. This is the Torpor Orb that works well alongside Aether Vial, because when deploying creatures from the Vial, your mana is often open to be utilised for doing other things. Now, usually in Legacy that's porting your opponent or wastelanding them, or in Modern it's ghost quartering them, but it might just be that you get to use your mana for this tax thanks to Aether Vial. And I've gone on record in the past as saying that you can't play Leonin Arbiter alongside Stoneforge Mystic because you're going to make your Stoneforge Mystics worse by having to pay 2 extra mana. And then I had to also go on record to say I was wrong. That actually, even though it's a non-bow, it's a non-bow that's worth playing. But before we start asking if we want to pay this tax on our end of the battlefield effects, I guess we have to talk about where this is useful and what it does in certain matchups amongst the older formats. Straight up in Legacy, it shamefully doesn't pass the quite high bar of can I fetch it with Recruiter of the Guard. When you can't fetch it with Recruiter of the Guard, which requires its toughness to be 2 or less, the card has to be incredibly strong to see any play in the current metagame. Sarah Avenger has seen a bit of play here and there in some versions of D&T, but on the whole you want your cards fetchable off Recruiter. Silver Bullets, utility creatures, all of them. The fact that it then hurts Recruiter of the Guard's ETB, Stoneforge Mystic and Flicker Wisp, and in the more niche cases these days, Palace Jailer and Leonin Relic Warder, I have to say this just doesn't cut the mustard in Legacy. I was struggling to really come up with ways that it would actually help you in Legacy. It stops the card draw of the Snow Snake, but it also means that if someone plays an Uro against you, they can draw the card and put the land into play by paying 2 mana, and then they can just choose to counter the sack ability. So they've got a 5 mana 6/6 Titan. It is interesting to think that this was going to be in the format alongside Legacy and Croakset in Standard, in theory, because don't forget, if you're playing this, you can abuse it on your side by playing creatures with negative drawback ETBs, like Uro, for example. You can even play Uro off of this. You can ramp, or you could have done before it got banned in every format. You could go turn 2 this, turn 3 Uro, no card draw, no life gain, no land, but also no sack, and the following turn start attacking with your 6/6. Now, obviously, that already existed with Hushbringer Griff, but to give us another copy of that made that quite the consistent thing. If we move away from Death and Taxes for a moment, Proctor does allow you, like I said, to play with things with negative ETBs like Phyrexian Dreadnought and counter their death triggers. Importantly, it isn't just creatures either, so it will stop, for example, Lotus Veil from sacking 2 other lands, ramping you for free if you're willing to play a 2-mana 1/3 and don't think that is a cost. I am sure there are other plenty of silly things that I just haven't come up with yet, where you can abuse the negative ETBs of other cards to great effect if you were playing this in your own deck, and then just randomly hosing your opponent's permanents too while you're at it. In Modern, I see this being a lot better as a card. It stifles enter the battlefield abilities coming out of Heliod Company and Titan decks being the big contenders, I think. Both Ranger Captain of Eos and Skyclave Apparition appear to be being played a lot in the Heliod deck, both essentially costing 5 mana now if you don't want them to just be glorified bears. Meanwhile, Titan is hosed really hard. The Titan itself now costs 8 mana the first time round if you want to go get those lands. Of course, you'd still cast it for the 6 and try to attack with it on the following turn, but stifling its ETB goes a long way to reducing its effectiveness. And then this, plus the Leonin Arbiter, these two together makes your Titan now 10 mana if you want to go searching up lands when it enters the battlefield. And then, perhaps more excitingly against the Titan deck, is that it makes Valakut not trigger unless you pay the 2. Field of the Dead, God rest its very banned soul, would have also been hampered by this, which does beg the question, was this one of the eventual hoses planned for it in Standard? But I think the fact that it does hose Valakut a little bit is extremely relevant in multiple formats at the moment, as people are playing Valakut alongside Dried of Elysian Groves to great effect. And then elsewhere it catches out other random things too, Thought Knot Seer, Snapcaster Mage, and the land drop triggers for crabs in the mill deck. And even in Historic and stuff, there is the Seagate Caller doubling Neoform deck that storms off. This literally tells you can't do that unless you can pay 2 mana for every ETB, which you just can't do. Funnily enough, this card would also be a great hoser for Splinter Twin. But yeah, that's not relevant anywhere anymore. I personally will definitely be trying this card in Modern for the fact that it is a Torpor Orb that I can play around. That I can know is coming, I can set up, I can come from my Var and use my mana to allow my Stoneforge Mystic to go get a equipment on turn 3, for example. It's way better than any of the other versions of this we've had in the past for that very reason. Of course, that does give it a ceiling of how good it can be, because when you get into the late game, people can just pay to play through its ability. But if Thalia, Guardian of Thraben has taught any of us anything, it's that when you're taxing your opponent, it's often a route to victory, because they're playing off kilter, they're playing off tempo, they're not playing the game plan that they want to play. Interestingly, we just have the Elite Spellbinder spoiled, Paulo Vito Doma Rose's World Championship card, a white card that attacks the hand, picks a card from it and says the opponent can't cast that spell unless they pay 2. The card never returns to their hand either. It's wonderful how this design is so different, yet so similar to a role player like Tidehollow Sculler. At first I was very down on this card and thought it was just a bad version of Sculler in many ways because the opponent still has access to that card. Obviously it's a tempo loss and it's very good against Wraths, for example, putting a Wrath of God or Supreme Verdict off until turn 6 is very strong, but the more I look at it and the aggressive body, the more I come around to the idea that it's probably better than Tidehollow Sculler in a lot of decks. But the interesting thing I found is that it doesn't actually play very well with our new Spirit Cleric friend here. If you curved strict Proctor into Elite Spellbinder, you wouldn't be having much of a good time because you wouldn't be able to pay for Elite Spellbinder's ETB. You'd just be paying for a 3-mana 3/1 flyer, which isn't the worst rate in the world, but it is kind of funny that these two just don't play very well together. Also, as a side note, it's not clear to me that this dude in the art here, which I guess is Paulo, is flying. It's not clear to me that he's flying. He's floating, or jumping perhaps. Doesn't feel like flying. Same with the new Spirit Cleric as well. Meanwhile, Skyclade Apparition, I feel like it looks like it's flying, but it just doesn't, and this confuses me to no end. So that is Strict Proctor. That is my preview card. That is the first one that's ever really fit with my channel, my brand identity, the stuff that I like to play, and me as a content creator. And for that reason, I do want to shout out Sean at Wizard of the Coast that sent this to me. Sean Allen, who is working with influencers over at Wizard of the Coast, he actually reached out to me to ask if I had anything I was known for, anything associated with the brand. I gave him a long list of things from bees to minotaurs, prison, stacks, hate bears, D&T. He took this all on board and offered me this preview. And this is super refreshing considering in the past, myself, other creators, and viewers have voiced how it seems like the previews are managed in a way that's just completely slapdash and completely random. Like there was no due consideration or any effort taken to figure out what would fit people. I mean, I got Teleria West literally last preview season, and Brian at Teleria Community College didn't get that. So, yeah. So thank you, Sean, for doing that, because it makes the preview season more exciting for me. It makes it feel a bit more personal in many ways, and I'm sure viewers of this channel and other channels will enjoy seeing their favourite creators and people that they enjoy watching get to preview stuff that they know a bit more about or have much deeper thoughts on than haha, cool art, look at this, I'm very happy, here's my tweet. I don't know, I think it's cool, and I just want to say a big shout out to Sean for doing that, because I think we should applaud wizards when they do the right thing, because we often just sit around circle jerking over the problems they make. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Sean. So let me know in the comment section below what you think of the new Spirit Cleric. I do have to observe, I'm really liking this this visual identity within Strixhaven of the spirits being like energy creatures that like control and maneuver statues or broken old statues. We saw it in that new white-red rare as well that brings back creatures. I like it. I just think it makes spirits visually clearly from this plane as opposed to just being ghostly ghosts like they always are. Let me know in the comment section below if I've missed any key interactions or obvious things coming up from this. Let me know what you think, if it's going to see any play in Modern or Legacy. I am definitely, because in the 2 mana slot, I'm definitely going to try this in Modern. I just don't think it will cut the mustard in Legacy. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.